Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Here's a video to go along with today's lesson. And so what we did today was we saw how to get some basic interactivity to work with our turtle library here. So we're going to learn how to get input from the keyboard as well as the mouse so that we can do some basic interactive stuff in Turtle. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that we can move our turtle with the arrow keys. So pushing forward, we'll move the turtle forward. Left and right, we'll turn it. And we're going to make it so that when we click on the screen, the turtle will move to that location. So this is going to take three major parts for each section. And so how it works is, well, we're going to do the last thing first. You can see I've already made our screen and our pen, or turtle. And so what we need to do is, the very last thing we're going to do is the main loop. So we need to have this as the last part of our code anytime we're doing any kind of interactivity or that kind of idea with our programs, okay? Without that, the screen will not update, it won't listen for anything, whatever. The other thing that we need to do is we need to tell it to listen for user inputs. So screen.listen. So that's going to go right there. Here we're telling, okay, we need to listen for inputs. Then we're going to say what are the inputs we're going to listen for, and then begin the main loop. That's kind of how the structure is going to work. So before we make the listeners, each listener is going to have its own function that it calls. And so if we're going to have sort of three keys, each doing their own thing, moving forward moves forward, pressing the left key goes left, and pressing the right key turns right, we need one function for each one of those things. So I'm going to write those functions right now, but we're not going to put in the code yet. We're just going to define them and then put pass in there. So we're going to have move forward. It doesn't need any arguments. I'll put in pass. And then def, we want to turn right. And I suppose I need to pass as well. And we also want a turn left function. So these are going to be the functions that are called when the person or user presses these keys. So with those made, now we can actually create our listeners. And so what a listener does is it listens for a particular input, and when the input it's specified to listen for happens, it runs a certain piece of code. And the code it's going to run are these functions. So we're going to do screen on key press. So there's two different kinds of listeners that we can use for keys. One is on key press. The other is on key release. On key release. These are the two listeners that we have. One will run its code when we push down on a key. The other one only runs when we lift up on the key. So this is going to be the one that we want to use because it's going to be more responsive. But this is an option if you want it. So that is the listener, and it takes two arguments. We need to say what function is going to be run, and second, we need to tell it what key is it going to be listening for. So we're going to make the move forward key binding first. So I'm going to move forward. First argument is what function do we want to call? And notice that unlike every time we've used functions before, I do not have the brackets there. That's because we're just simply referencing that function. We're telling it, okay, this is the function we want to run, but we don't want to run it yet. And putting those brackets means run this function. We don't want to run the function, we just want to reference it and say, this is a function I want you to run later. And second is we need to tell it what key do we want to bind to our move forward function. And so for regular keys, you just put in the letter or the number, whatever. But for special keys like up arrow and spacebar and whatnot, you need to give a more fuller description. So for the up arrow, it is just simply up. And so when we push up, it will run the move forward function. And we're going to do the same thing with our turn right and turn left, just binding them to different keys. So on key press, we're going to turn right when we push the right key, and screen on key press, we're going to turn left when we push the left key. And there we go. So those are the key listeners that we're going to be using, up, right, and left. And now we need to tell it what to do inside these functions. So move forward. When we push up, we want to move forward, and so we're going to tell our pen to go forward by, let's say, 10. We can also turn right. So pen, we're going to turn right by 90 degrees. And when we turn left, we want to turn left by 90 degrees. So left 90. Just like that. And, well, how about we slow down our pen a little bit, as well as thicken the line that it makes. So I'm going to say pen dot speed. Let's slow it down all the way to 1. And pen dot width. Let's make it 3 wide. Now make it a little bit thicker and a little bit slower so we can kind of watch it move. Alright. So here we are, and now if I push forward, there it goes. And turn, and forward. For some reason, if I hold it, it likes to go back to its starting point, but there we go. And now it's doing all sorts of weird stuff because I hit the button a lot of times. But that is now moving it around. Perfect. So that is the basic aspect of a keyboard listener. We can do the same idea with the mouse. Let's take a look at how the mouse listeners work. So once again, we're going to need to make a function that is going to be called whenever we click on the mouse here. So I'm going to call it the move to function, because that's what it's going to do. It's going to move our pen to wherever we clicked on the screen. And so we'll put in the code in a moment, but we're going to need to make the listener. So we're going to put in the same places where we're putting all of our key listeners. So screen dot, but instead of on key press, we're going to do on click. So when we click the mouse, what do we want to do? This only takes a single argument. So unlike the key presses, we don't need to give it what key is it listening for. So it's going to be listening for any kind of mouse click. So we're just going to tell it to use the move to function when we click. And that's it. And if we want to move it to, one key thing that is different between this listener and this listener is when these listeners are run, or when they are triggered, they do not pass any parameters to their functions. That's why none of these have any parameters. Move to is going to get parameters sent to it, because on click is going to send it 2 parameters every time it calls this function. And what it's going to send it, the information it's going to send it, is the X and the Y position of the mouse when this is clicked. So that's going to be how we get information of where is our mouse when they click on it, and how do we know where to move the pen to. So any of your on-click functions need to have these 2 parameters, even if you're not going to use them. but we are going to use them. And we don't want to draw a line as it's moving, so what we're going to do is we're going to lift our pen up, and then we're going to go to the position passed to us as the position of the mouse, and then we are going to lower our pen again so that we can keep on drawing. And so this should now allow us to click on the screen and have the pen or turtle move to that position. We're running. There we go. And so I'm going to click over here and it moves over there. I click down here and it moves over there. And I click over here and it moves way over there. And I can draw. And I can move over here and do more drawing. So, there we go. That is our mouse listener and function. So that was weird. So you're going to have to be a little bit careful when you're doing this because it does occasionally have odd behavior, especially when the pen is moving slowly, because as it's trying to finish its last instruction, if you're trying to put in some more instructions, it might do some weird stuff. So if you speed up the pen, that is not going to be a big one issue. Last thing I want to show you is how to write text to the screen but make it bigger, because last time we saw this, the text was not very big and it wasn't very suitable for what we wanted to use it for. It did write to the screen, but let's learn how to make it write big to the screen. So what we're going to do is, well, we're just going to write to the screen. So we saw this before, pen.write. And then first thing we need to tell it is what do we want to write. We're going to write hello world, because why not? And then in order to change its size, what we're going to do is we're going to use the font optional parameter. And we need to give it what's known as a tuple. So that's why we have round brackets here. And then this round bracket matches with this one. And inside of these round brackets, we need to give three things. The first thing we need to give it is the name of the font we want to use. And we suggested Comic Sans before, so Comic Sans is going to be what we use. Then I need to give it an integer number, which is how big do we want this font to be. And I'm going to make it 30. Finally, we need to give it another string saying, do we want it to be drawn normally? Do we want it to be bold? Do we want it to be italicized? What? And I'm going to make it not blood, bold. Bold. So, Comic Sans, 30 size, and make it bold. And so that should now write to the screen. There we go. Much bigger than we saw last time. And we can, of course, underline it, I guess. Move our stuff around. And get all sorts of weird behavior because of the excess clicking. So, that is everything I wanted to show you today, was how do you get input from the keyboard and the mouse and have it do stuff on the screen. So it's pretty simple with Turtle. We just need to make a function that is going to be run when something happens. We need to say to the screen, we need to listen for inputs as well as tell the screen to enter the main loop, and then make the listener for each different input and what we want it to do. So what key should run what function, what should happen when they click the mouse, etc. Also, this is how you draw big bigger stuff or write bigger stuff is by using this font and then telling it what size you want it to be. But you do need to give all three. You cannot just give one of them. Alright? So that is everything I wanted to cover today. Next time we are going to be taking a look at the final project. I'll be introducing that on Wednesday. And then we got about a month in order to work on that. So getting close to the end, keep that in mind and try to get everything finished soon because you don't want to be rushed at the end. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Have a good one, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye.